Hello everyone, my name is Aishwarya Godke and welcome to the RIMS India Chapter Student Council YouTube channel. Today we are honored to have Mr. Abhinab Pradhan with us. So Abhinav Pradhan is a seasoned professional in reinsurance and analytical sector, currently serving as a growth manager at Xceedence. With a strong academic background, he holds a degree from National Institute of Technology, Hamirpur, and an MBA from Indian School of Business. So thank you, Abhinav, for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay. So now our focus is a very crucial topic, that is catastrophic risk management. So my first question to you is that from climate change to pandemic, the landscape of potential catastrophe is constantly evolving. So how is the field of catastrophic risk management is adapting and innovating to address these new threats?
Right. Uh, I would also going to rely on the session we had before, and as we talked about before, right? Pandemic modeling existed even before COVID occurred, right? Climate change, we're studying the impact. It's not that models don't exist. There are SSP future climate scenarios that exist in assessing climate risk, advancement of more events like pandemic, swarm events that we, black swan events that we talk about, right? So there are efforts that are being made, and as we talked about before, we've learned so much in the past, in the last 10 years itself, from the cat models, from the nat cats, from earthquakes, from terrorism to hurricane. So our industry is ever evolving, and we have to stay abreast with the changing landscape in climate, in the impact of these NatCat or man-made events on our industry and society. And lucky for us, we are at this stage that there is so much of access to data and new technology, AI, ML, coming in so much into force that underwriting has become more specific and specialized, right? So we are staying abreast with the evolving changes in the hazard that we talked about, but we're also trying to catch up with mitigating and managing that risk better now.
Okay. So my next question is that how do you see the technology playing a role in catastrophic risk management, both in predicting and responding to the events?
Right. So AI ML, we talked about it. I'm not going to harp more about it. But for example, drones. We didn't cover that in the session before, right? Drones with their cameras help assess the extent of damage in areas that human intervention and inspection is not possible. Drones flying around high-rise buildings, assessing for security, right? Technology has come to a point where it helps us not just mitigating, but also managing risks to such an extent that we hadn't thought of before, right? At one hand, we are exposed to so many risks that we did not think of like 10 years ago, but technology has also come to a point that it's helping solve problems in ways that we hadn't thought of before, right? So there is AI ML on the data side, drones, IoT devices, telematics. It's a different story that we don't utilize all this data collection, or we haven't figured a way to utilize this data that we're collecting to fine tune our insurance, reinsurance processes and analytics. That's a different discussion altogether. But we are at a point to be able to collect so much data, churn this data in a more meaningful way, and much more technological advancements in collecting data for better risk assessment. First risk assessment, then we think about mitigation and management, right? So we are at the precipice, I would say, of such an amazing time, and I'm glad to be here.
Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
Talking about this with you.
So thank you so much. So my third question is that what are your biggest concerns and hopes for the future of catastrophic risk management, and how can we ensure that we are prepared for the challenges of a changing world?
We talked about how this is a VUCA world,
Yeah.
right? And cat management is like at the center of managing so much uncertainties. In the session earlier, we talked about primary and secondary uncertainties that surround us, and even in our day-to-day lives, right? staying abreast with time. You guys are doing a postgrad at this point in time with the intention that you don't want to stay stagnant, right? In your personal front. At our industry professional front too, we cannot stay stagnant with the ways we worked on insurance and data processing and whatnot, industries adapting. The key would be, how agile are we? How quickly do we adapt to the changing times? And that's what will set us apart, right? And if I give you a little, a very non-technical answer, and I think that a growth mindset would really help, right? And I do want to bring this up because as you set your foot forth and become the new industry professionals of our industry for the future, right? Growth mindset is the way to go. And as we discussed before, relationships matter, asking the right questions to the right people, right? Which means that you have a growth mindset, right? I will not say this problem is insurmountable and I cannot do it. But no, a growth mindset will say, oh, we've not faced this before, does not mean we will not be able to conquer it. We'll have to think of our action plan and rebuild and rethink our strategy, but we'll figure out a way to do this, right? And I wanted to tell you this because that attitude really matters. And in our industry where we're trying to build and preach resilience to the masses, we need to be able to build resilience in our lifestyle. And my favorite thing to say, as part of your occupational hazard, right? So be able to practice what you preach as a risk professional, and then together all of us, and I'm sure in the future you'll be solving problems that we did not face 10 years ago, and it'd be so exciting to work together and solve all these problems together, right?
Yes, definitely. So I think my teammates have some questions for you.
Sir, you were talking about the data collection for CAT modeling. Suppose I'll give you a scenario, like if you are a startup CAT modeling agency, so how you would go on to develop a model for different insurers. So can you expound on that?
For different insurers?
Yeah, like data collection for the startup would be a difficult task. So how would you go
This
on
is
to
for
develop
the purpose
models
of the
for that?
startup is to build a cat
Cat
model,
model. Yes,
or
sir.
for okay. No, the data that we collect, like we talked about in our session before, there is exposure data, primary, secondary characteristics, right? This is finite information that you can always collect from an insurer.
Yes.
All right. So there's not an infinite number of questions or a lot of uncertainty. A location, that building. The brutal way of doing it is go at that exact location, figure out all the primary and secondary characteristics. But we don't really have to do that, right? Especially, and we can't afford to do that because we're probably looking at thousands of locations. It's not possible to do that. But to build a CAT model for an insurance company, garbage in, garbage out, remember, collecting the right amount of primary, secondary characteristics, location information is critical to a mature CAT modeling as well as a startup company, right? So the data collection challenges remain the same, but would remain the same. But do you have like a more, is there any more detailed, is there something else that you wanted to ask?
So actually was wanted to ask about how you do develop a risk model for as a startup cat modeling. You would be having a lack of data or something to develop the models for the insurance.
Okay,
so how would you go about it?
Before the data, I would need the right people
Yes.
to build the hazard module, financial module, people who are structural engineers, and financial insurance experts. With them will come the correct data collection. So if your question is about starting a company, you would need to find the right people who would be able to do that. So data is not your first concern. It'll be finding the right earthquake and meteorologists, earthquake seismologists, these kind of experts, geologists to work with you to build that kind of right data. Would that be okay?
Yes.
So if you go back to that drawing board room discussion of hazard, vulnerability, and financial, we need experts in each of these three domains to be able to build that. And then comes data collection,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes, sir. Right, like due to the climate change, world has become completely unpredictable. Like you said that we are living in VUCA world, so we need to make our model relevant to the future scenarios as well. So you might find quite a challenging, like to make your models relevant so that they can quantify the loss accordingly. So how you are making your models relevant based on the upcoming scenarios? Like how you are coping those kind of events?
So we talked about model misses and adjusting loss adjustments. So whatever current models that we have, we introduce a loss adjustment factor. Now that loss adjustment factor will come into play for a given area scenario, how much loss to assess, adjust for. So we work with climate experts to be able to see how much of loss we are not calculating for at the moment, right? And climate change, there's a lot of modeling on scenario-based modeling right now, right? So these loss adjustments, and this is not just climate change, right? And previously we talked about model misses, right? So this is a type of a model miss. So we'll introduce these loss adjustment factors to factor in the loss that we're not taking into consideration, so that we look at the full scale of the magnitude of the financial losses that we might be in for, right? And take these corrective measures. There's the discussion on like climate change model building, that's a separate thing, but currently this is what we are doing. And also looking at the scenario based modeling on climate and looking at direct climate change impact on hurricane and on wildfires, right? So these are the studies that we are currently doing.
Thanks.
So I had a question. Like we all are basically an MBA graduates, or we may be going to be a graduate. So how can we build a career in cat risk? What skills do we need, or what more do we need to? What more certifications do we need to be a cat risk model expert?
Right. So you've already done this course in risk management, right? MBA gives you that edge of understanding finance, economics, marketing, and we've talked about so much about risk management being such an interdisciplinary field, right? So there's marketing, you learn about strategy,
Yes.
geopolitics matters when you're looking at terror modeling also, right? So you already have an edge with the MBA, having covered all these courses thoroughly. You combine that with study of risk management, right? That has the edge. Now, your question on what additional certifications there are a couple of certifications that are available. I've done a few from the institutes like the ARE Associate of Reinsurance, there are CPCU, and I know some of you also III,
Yeah.
right? So there are abundant certifications if you want to pursue a career in risk management. But certification is one. I'll leave you with this caveat that certification is one, but applying that knowledge is what's even more important. There are a lot of successful people who don't have who don't have a certification but extremely successful in their careers, right? Bagging certification is not a metric for success in the career, though. Can I leave you with that?
Yeah.
All right.
Surely.
Right? It's this application of knowledge, right? That's all that matters for a successful and bright career.
Maybe we can go back and link it to exposure and experience that you talked about.
Absolutely, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I think I want to thank you, Abhinab, for making time and coming all the way from Bangalore and talking to my students. I think this session is invaluable for them. Yeah. And I think they see a role model which they can actually move ahead into, and that is exactly what I wanted. So you fulfill that for the institute and for us. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mr. Roop. Thank you for having me. And you would have called, I wouldn't have said no. So I'm glad. Last year we were in the same city,
Yeah.
but I would have come anyway. But thank you so much for having me and giving me like such a wonderful audience today. Tough crowd, but it was worth every minute that we spent in the session earlier today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Abhinav, for sharing your expertise with us. A special thanks to Roop Kumar sir for giving me this opportunity, and my gratitude extends to IARM and RIMS India Chapter Student Council. For more videos, stay tuned, stay risk aware.
Wonderful.